Buying a house to live on it is not a very good idea. And I will be providing you for the next couple of minutes my few points of evidence that all converge to the same image. Buying a house is a horrible idea. It's anti-civilizational, inefficient, bureaucratic dependent, and you will become poorer by it. In my view, the prices right now, a flat in Zurich for £1,000,000 is a ridiculous and absurd price. It's completely not justified. The benefits of living in the city center don't compensate for that absurd price. The salaries here are not so much higher than elsewhere. How is it that with real estate there doesn't seem to be a fair price? How could it be that there's an asset which doesn't have a price at which it's overvalued and a price at which it's undervalued? It has to be the case. With every asset, there has to be an expectation of the value it's going to provide to you so that you will be willing to pay for it based on that. I think that real estate is overvalued. Right now, it's way above what it should be. Okay, so this is Alex while editing the video. If you compare apples to apples, what real estate does with other assets, you realize that the profitability of it is much less. Because if people go leverage into buying real estate with everything they have, they go all in. They get as much debt from the banks as they can. And the credit ratings are artificially low because of the governmental subsidies on it, that because they are discounting the taxes that they would get paid in the future. There's all kinds of factory happening in this system. But if you compare the returns on investment with another investment that has also been leveraged, you would realize that the profitability of it is not as high. How leveraged people go into the average mortgage? 20% down payment, that's a 5-to-1 collateralization. 10%, 10-to-1. It's a ridiculously high number that people get indebted to be able to get a house. Think about what would have happened if you went into the S&P 500 5-to-1 for the last 4 years. You would be pretty rich and you wouldn't have had to deal with leakage of water or painting walls or tenants if you want to rent it and make it profitable or somewhat profitable. First of all, we are going to face demographic collapse across the world. This is not something exclusive of the West. It's going to be happening across the entire world. Fertility rates are way beneath the replacement rate of 2.1 almost across the whole planet. Even Africa is going to get there at some point. Demographics are destiny. You cannot fight against it. You cannot create 20-year-olds right now. You're 20 years too late. And because of that, whatever the demographic distribution is now won't change in a dramatic way for at least the next 20 years. And even for the next 4 years, because are we going to expect the people who are in their 20s right now to start having kids at a rate that they have never for the last 60 years? Of course they're not. So demographics are destiny. And what the current demographic projections point to is that we're going to be facing a demographic collapse. If what uses houses is people, and people is the thing we're going to be running out of in the next couple of decades, maybe not running out of, but we're going to have fewer of them. And when you have fewer people who are the ones using the houses and willing to pay for them with their time and their money, then how are you going to keep the price at the same point as it was before? What's the percentage of your lifetime income that you have to invest into buying a house? It has never been higher than now. Houses have been a saving place for almost 3 generations now. It's a place where people put their money in to keep it from being robbed by inflation. And fair if your objective was that, but that only works for a couple generations until people have worked their asses off enough into pushing the prices high enough that the next generation buying the next unit of the asset would be too burdened by it. If we were only going to be facing the demographic collapse we're going to face for the next couple of decades, then there would be enough of a reason to short the real estate market. But on top of that, we have that for the last 100 years, people have been buying real estate like maniacs, and it seems like it's the only realistic vehicle in which you could preserve your wealth. At least that's the case where I come from. I come from Spain, and it's a place where people only conceive of real estate as the place to invest your assets. If you don't invest in real estate, you're considered to be someone who's homeless almost. You lose an amount of status that it's ridiculous. So I don't believe in this. I think that it's anti-civilizational. If you think about it from first principles, you realize that civilization is division of labor. Having people provide services which are specialized and being able to consume services that are generalized. I didn't produce this camera I'm recording with. I have no clue how the lenses work. And that's good because I'm only specialized in doing one thing. I read my books, I write my articles, and I do my podcasts. But I don't have to think about how lenses work. Of course, it's a fascinating thing to learn about, but my livelihood doesn't depend on me pulling off a competitive camera like the one I'm looking at right now. That's civilization in a nutshell. When you buy a house, you're taking a step back in the division of labor. You're not only working as an editor, like I do, but you are also now having to take care of a house and the schedule at which walls should be painted and what should be repaired when and how, the taxes that you have to pay. There's so much bureaucracy and stuff that you have to deal with when you're an owner that you don't have to deal with when you rent. That's not worth it. There's division of labor for a reason. The profession of real estate manager wouldn't exist if this wasn't a huge pain in the butt. Maybe some of you are doctors or plumbers or whatever. Your profession wouldn't exist if it wasn't a pain in the butt to do it. So why are you taking the pain on your butt for something else? Why are you handling a real estate portfolio by owning a house? It's something that I think we have to overcome. And if we find alternative vehicles on which to channel our capital, because I'm not against accumulating capital. That's a wonderful thing that we can do now in our societies. It's the accumulation of capital that allows the improvement in our living conditions. It's precisely because of that that we now don't live anymore in a cave and we can enjoy our living standard. But buying a house is not helping that at all. If anything, it's taking us back towards the cave in many ways. So we have to follow the principle of division of labor. That's almost a law of economics. If you don't do it, you're gonna be unproductive and you're gonna have a very low living standard. Try building your own microchip. Come on, it's ridiculous. So of course you wouldn't. But why are you trying to manage your own real estate portfolio when you're not a professional at doing that? Going through the learning curve of how to do it is super inefficient. And of course, there's some benefit to it because you can create buffers in society, so many people know how to do it, but we already have enough of a buffer by having many people being real estate managers. And if your real estate manager happens to be an asshole, he doesn't get enough cleaning services, and your common areas are very dirty, then you can go and find competition of him. There's no real need in the economy for you to know how to do everything. You can rely on the division of labor, learn how to do your craft, focus on it, become the best at it, and you will have the best life you could ever have. Another argument that I haven't mentioned yet is digitalization. We have devices that have so many features in themselves that used to take so much space a couple decades ago. So this phone contains in itself a note-taking app, a camera, a microphone, a messaging app. It has so many features that would have taken so much space just a couple decades ago. I'm not going to enumerate all of them. I leave an infographic here so you can see more or less in a visual manner the magnitude of what I'm talking about, because this is dramatic. The space-saving nature of digitization is so dramatic that for people who are particularly digitalized like I am, it gives us a huge amount of independence from the physical world. Basically, this meat of sack that I have to carry around, that's my body, and I have to feed it, it's one of the few physical things I have to take care of because I don't have any more note blocks or cameras or anything that I have to take care of because I have a device on which almost every feature that I needed before has been condensed. The process is extremely efficient. Digitalization is collapsing so many things that we needed into a single object, and transition between them is super efficient. So I love it. You yourself probably have fewer books than your grandparents used to have. Why is that? Because you have all the books or all the TikTok distractions in your phone. And so there's downsides to it, of course. But the huge upside, the huge increase in the intensity with which we use every square meter coming from digitalization is something that cannot be overlooked. So if you stack all of these arguments I put forward until now, a rational person could only come with the conclusion that buying residential real estate is not the most rational thing to do. But on top of all of these objective facts which are happening, this is a sector that's notoriously bureaucratized and regulated. So the bureaucrats have a huge control over what gets built, where it gets built, and how it gets built. So if I have to follow the rules of a bureaucrat to such an extent to buy something that's overrated, anti-civilizational, then how optimistic am I going to be about buying it? Do you think that all the regulations surrounding real estate is going to incentivize me in any way to buy it, on top of all the other facts that I already discussed? So I might have a bias. I do have it. I'm a libertarian. I don't like the state. I would like the state to be as small as possible. I'm not an anarchist, but I believe in some state, but it's certainly too big. Having bureaucrats tell you so much how to live if you happen to invest in this specific thing is something that pisses me off one step further. And I think you guys should also be pissed by it. Because if you invest in other vehicles, your life will be ruled to some extent less by those bureaucrats that tell you how to live. So if you invest your money in gold, or in the S&P 500, for example, which have been having a pretty good track record for the last couple centuries, you realize that you are not going to be paying taxes on it, because what taxes does gold pay, or the S&P 500? If you reinvest your dividends, you don't really need to pay any taxes. But a house, for sure, you will have to pay for. You don't have to deal with the burden of seeking tenants, or repairing, or fixing the roof. It's such a horrible investment, waste of time, learning to do one more business when you're already trying to make the best out of the one that gave you the capital to invest in real estate to begin with. In conclusion, buy something else. Whatever it is, figure out something that will probably go down less than real estate in the next 5 decades. How are you going to expect to make a profit with something that's overvalued? Profit is made when something is undervalued by the market. You don't undervalue it as much, and then the market stops undervaluing it as much. That's when you make a profit. When the market realizes that it was undervaluing something after you did. And that's certainly not going to happen now with real estate, because it's overvalued. But you certainly can buy less of it by becoming more digital intensive in your life and realizing that the flex that the boomers had of how many square meters my house has is a ridiculous one. Why do you save your money in something that takes space, needs repairs, and pays taxes? Such a bad way of investing your assets. And on top of that, the house doesn't move. So if your government happens to become especially authoritarian, like it's happening right now in Spain, what are you supposed to do about that? How are you going to move it out? Are you going to take your house, move it elsewhere? Why would you put so much faith on the good going of the government wherever you live? The fact that you get stuck in a place has to be discounted to some extent. And if you don't, then you'll lose money. So this is your moment to short the real estate market as hard as possible, or at least buying from it as least as possible, which is what I'm trying to do. My 24 square meter apartment, which in freedom units will be displayed here right now, is a very small apartment. If I could, I would get a smaller one, because there's a couple, maybe 8 square meters that I don't use at all. It's just empty. And for sure, many people might be saying, yeah, but you're a young guy living alone. And of course you would be able to pull it off because your life is very lean. How about if you're a single mother? How many square meters can you pull off having then? And of course, there's many circumstances where people would need more square meters than I do, but the principle still applies. If you're more minimalistic, if you increase the intensity of the digitalization in your life, you would end up moving towards the right direction and reducing your dependence from a corrupt and stupid market, which the residential real estate one is.